So you've decided you want to shoot virtual tours and you're looking for a 360 camera with that purpose in mind. When shooting a virtual tour, a lot of things don't apply that I talk about in my other videos. Things like video, things like stabilization, things like low light, because most virtual tours are shot during the day. So I have the 4 best contenders in front of me now. I want to put them side by side to figure out really which is the best camera you should buy if you want to make money with virtual tours. To be perfectly honest with you, the best 360 camera choice is using a DSLR. Now what you're thinking, DSLR? What? They don't shoot 360s. Well, actually they do. Back in the day, panoramic photographers would use a DSLR with a nodal head and they'd point the camera in all directions, capturing a mega high resolution 360 panorama, which they then stitch together into an awesome looking 360. They still do this today and this is still the best option. But that takes way too long. Who's got time to download all those files, stitch them together photo by photo by photo? I want to be able to do it in minutes, which is why in this video we're going to choose the best point and shoot 360 camera. So the 2 things you should look for in a 360 camera for shooting virtual tours are 1, resolution, and 2, dynamic range. These are crucial because all buildings that you might be shooting in will have an interior and an exterior that is significantly brighter than the interior, which is why dynamic range is so important. You need a camera that can capture both of them harmoniously in the same photo and not completely blow out the background or underexpose the interior. And this can be achieved in 2 ways. The first way is just shooting in HDR mode. Some cameras, like this one, have HDR mode, so you can do it right there in the camera, which is really handy because it means there's less post work later on. The second way is shooting in RAW. A lot of these cameras now can shoot in RAW, which means you have a lot more control over your highlights and your shadows in post. So if you like editing in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, you can really recover any detail that might have been under or overexposed. Next is resolution, and when you choose a 360 camera, you need to make sure you choose one with just a base level of resolution. Resolution isn't everything, but it's something. I would prioritize exposure over resolution, but if you have about 15 megapixels or more, you should be okay. Don't settle for some cheap, crappy camera you found on eBay. It's worth getting the name brands that you might have seen on my YouTube channel because they will deliver. So now I'm going to put these 4 cameras to the test in a high contrast room that I've got here. Really strong lighting coming in through the windows and we have shadows inside. So this will be a good test of which of these 4 cameras are the best for virtual tours. Now we'll be shooting RAW when I can, which is with 2 of these cameras. Now we'll be shooting in HDR mode for the cameras that also allow HDR. And you know what? I'm going to put the samples from all of these photos that I'm taking today down in the description if you want to download them and pixel peep them yourself, if you want to edit them and see exactly what workflow works best for you, or make them available for free, check the description. So here are the photos I took. With each camera, I used the settings that produce the best overall look, exposure, dynamic range, and so on. So the photos in front of you are as good as they possibly can look with each camera. I color corrected them in Adobe Camera Raw. I will show you the original images a little later. With the Xiaomi Mi Sphere, I shot in RAW and I found that looks slightly better than auto exposure. The Mi Sphere is always super contrasty, so I found that helped a bit. Again, the Insta360 one looked best in RAW. I shot this in DNG RAW, stitched in Insta360 Studio, and I must say I'm pleasantly surprised at how good it turned out. Here's the Theta V, and I shot this in HDR rendering, which is a setting within the app, and damn, I'm happy with this. I don't know what else to say. Finally, here's the Fusion, and this photo was taken with RAW on and ProTune on. However, this isn't a RAW photo. You can't yet stitch RAW within the GoPro app. So this is just plain auto exposure. So here are the things that are important to me when shooting a virtual tour. Now I want to address all of these things one by one to see how the cameras stack up against each other. I'll give them ratings and see which one wins overall. Taking a look at the sharpness, and straight away the Fusion draws my eye as the sharpest of the four, followed by the Sphere, and this is from a wider perspective. When we punch in, I think that all but confirms that. Fusion 1, Sphere 2. Believe it or not, the Theta V comes in third and Insta360 fourth. And this is really interesting because the two cameras on the left have a higher resolution than the two cameras on the right, yet the Theta V and Fusion are beating the Sphere and 1 respectively. So why is that? Well, the answer is lens quality. Because the two cameras on the right are the most expensive, they are designed the best, and the lenses are engineered in a way that despite having a lower resolution, they're able to capture details in a way that makes the resolution look higher than it actually is. Moving on to dynamic range, and looking at these 4 images here, I think they're all totally acceptable, and I'd be happy shooting a virtual tour with any of these if I had mixed lighting. I know they'd all do a pretty good job. First, I want to look at the highlights, and when I zoom in super close on all 4 images, they're all looking extremely different. The Theta V is no question handling it the best. Hey, the Insta360 is doing a really good job. Normally it's not that great in mixed lighting, but with highlights, it does an excellent job. Fusion comes next, and the Sphere is looking pretty average. Taking a look at the shadows, and it's a completely different story. The Theta V comes first again. Shadows are looking excellent. I would put Fusion in second. While the Sphere puts up a strong case for second, the texture of the Fusion is a lot better. I can see quite a bit of visible noise with the Sphere, whereas I can't with the Fusion. Finally, with the Insta360, it's just not a camera that's good at low light or shadows, so this especially applies to mixed lighting. It's not going to be great in the shadow areas, although it will be good in the highlights. So here's how I see it overall for dynamic range. Good old Theta V, it's always been excellent in dynamic range, and this is something I've said video after video. This is the best camera for dynamic range, period, end of story. Next is color, and if you haven't entered full screen mode yet, then now is the time to do it. So you can really pixel peep these colors, and straight away, again, the two cameras on the right stand out more than the cameras on the left. The Fusion and Theta V are almost inseparable. They both look really, really good for color. My skin tone definitely looks best on the Theta V. However, this video isn't about that. It's about photographing buildings. I'm finding it really hard to separate the two, but I would probably just give it to the Fusion because the colors are the most accurate to what I was seeing then and there with my eye. The Theta looks great, no question, and it's only second by a hair. Sphere third, 1 fourth. For those of you who choose not to color correct your photos, you're going to need a camera that has an awesome look straight out of the camera with very minimal post-production needed. This is taken straight from the SD cards, and this is more or less the look you will get in most situations. Due to the awesome dynamic range, again, the Theta V is going to take first place for straight out of the camera look, because it's just really well balanced. There's no overblown highlights, no crushed blacks. Everything is looking a-okay. I'd put the Fusion in second place, followed by the Sphere. One thing you will need to be careful about with the Sphere is sometimes the two lenses create two different color temperatures, and you might end up with a significant blue streak around the seam line. Ultimately, this can be fixed by the method in which you stitch, so you will want to be careful about this. Stitching in the app is going to create the strongest seam line, as you can see here. It won't always be there, but it will sometimes. So Sphere goes into third place, and bringing up the rear again is the Insta360, and while I do like the images overall that it produces, consistently I found it just looks washed out, especially where the highlights meet the shadows, and there always seems to be a lack of contrast, and contrast is really important to accentuate the architecture when you're shooting a virtual tour. Next is workflow, and this is something that will be vastly different for everyone, but I'll try to give you an idea of my workflow for each camera to get the best result possible and how long it took for each. Here are my workflows broken up into the general steps. You don't need to read them all, but this will hopefully give you an idea of how many steps there is for each. And even though they all have a similar amount of steps, with some cameras the steps are way faster done than others. Overall, I found the Theta V has the shortest amount of time per step. Normally it's about 30 to 60 seconds for most of them. Some of the bigger things take a bit longer, but overall, in my experience, the Theta V has the fastest workflow, followed by the Fusion,
Sphere, and Insta360 Look, your workflow is probably completely different to mine and that might change, but this is just my personal experience and something to consider when choosing a 360 camera for virtual tours. Now I'm going to add a category because there's something that's more important than everything I've discussed that will influence your buying decision, and that is price. You need the money to begin with to be able to buy a 360 camera. So I'm just going to mention it here right now real quick. Here they are. Here's the order, and I will put links in the description to where you can find them all for the best price possible. So here's the final tally. What do you guys think? Do your numbers look the same as mine? Leave a comment in the box below and let me know, but otherwise, according to my calculations, we have ourselves a winner. Here are the rankings. Excellent job to all 4 contestants, but the Theta V has this battle won. If you're thinking about buying a 360 camera specifically for virtual tours, you should pick the Theta V over all other cameras. This doesn't take away from the fact that the other 3 are all excellent, and they also excel at many other things outside of virtual tours, but if you're looking at shooting interiors of buildings, the Theta V is going to have your back. It has a great look, a great workflow, and an affordable-ish price. There's no doubt that new amazing cameras will be coming out in the future, so if you're watching months or even years after this video was released, use this video as a guide for what you should look for from a virtual tour 360 camera.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there for more awesome 360 photo and video content coming really soon. Hey, there's going to be some more Cubics videos coming really soon, so you won't want to miss those. Hit that like button if you like this video, hit the dislike button if you didn't. Also, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so check us out there for more awesome daily 360 content. Until next time, keep capturing your world in 360. This has been Ben, and I will see you in the next video.